case. They won't read the Epistle and Gospel. Today the Feast of St. Germain de Chantal. And today I have two considerations. It's the first Mass here in 2012 since this whole crisis began in Society of St. Pius X, beginning this whole movement of the resistance against the errors in Rome and against the liberalism going on in the whole of the world, and especially in our Society of St. Pius X, in which we have the liberalism of the world entering into the SSPX, and the fight against the Novus Ordo, the fight against liberalism diminished, and find ourselves joining the ranks of the enemy and leading souls away from God. And a movement that's been going on now for a long time, but it's been kind of official since 2012, and now in 2018, we're in the 7th year since this whole crisis. And now we have a new superior general, and also we're going to have a new superior for Asia. So now our 3rd superior since then. So Father Couture, of course, back in 2012, replaced by Father Pagliarani. By Father Stalin, and now Father Summers will be the new superior for Asia. Father Summers, who used to be stationed in India before he went. He got a bit sick in India with a stomach bug, and then he went over to England and was in the school there in England, in Bristol, for many years, until now being sent briefly to Post Falls, Idaho, and then now to here. And then Father Pagliarani, who used to also be stationed in Asia, is now the new superior of the Society of St. Pius X. When I first came to Asia, when I first came to the Philippines, Father Pagliarani preached the retreat, the priest retreat that year when I first came here in 2006, I think it was. 2006 or 2005, I think it was 2006, that I came here for the first time and then became the pastor here in Iloilo. And so just before coming the pastor here in Iloilo, Father Pagliarani preached our little retreat, and preached the retreat for the priests, so that our annual retreat, and then was on his way out from Asia to Italy, to the superior of Italy, and after that became the superior of the seminary in Argentina, replacing Bishop Williamson in 2009. And when Bishop Williamson was shipped out because of the leaking of the statements about the Holocaust, and Father Pagliarani was the replacement of Bishop Williamson as the rector of the seminary in Argentina. And then from there, he now is superior of the Society of St. Pius X. So Father Pagliarani and I were the same age, and we're exactly the same age, maybe 1 or 2 months, I guess, difference in age. And Father Pagliarani was ordained a priest 2 years after me in the 1990s, in 1996. So now he's 22 years priest, and now the superior of the Society of St. Pius X. And so there's been a changeover of various superiors in the last few years. Pretty priors have been moved from one place to another, and also we've changed popes since then. So in 2012, Pope Benedict was still the Pope, and then he resigned, and now Pope Francis, the Pope, and different superiors also of the Ecclesia Dei Commission. And so there's been a changeover of various superiors, and a movement of many priests, and now we have Father Pagliarani as the new superior of the Society of St. Pius X, who in 2012 or 2009 he was chosen as the priest to take the place of Bishop Williamson, because Bishop Williamson said his controversial statements about the Holocaust, and it was revealed on January the 23rd in 2009, and so the Feast of St. I was in India at the time with Father Couture and with Father Pfluger at the time of the announcement, and they made the announcement at that time that the consecrations, the excommunications of 1988 were lifted, that the excommunications were lifted, and that no longer Archbishop, the 4 bishops were asked to request a letter that they would request the excommunications to be lifted. So the 4 bishops finally acquiesced, and they sent that letter to Rome, and then Rome then responded by the January 23rd, January 21st, the date of the actual lifting of the excommunication. It was released on January 23rd, and the excommunications lifted. Big crisis then about Bishop Williamson's statements concerning the Holocaust, and that went all over the world, and all the news media throughout the world. That Angela Merkel, in charge in Germany, said it was a great scandal that the Pope would lift the excommunications of a Holocaust denier. Then the Pope said he didn't know that he was a Holocaust denier, and if he knew it, he wouldn't have lifted the excommunication. And there was supposed to be a union between the society at Rome in that time. But the explosion of the media against the Society of St. Pius X because of the Holocaust-denying bishop delays the operation. And I was in India at the time with Father Chazelle and with Father Pfluger and Father Couture. We were sitting at a table in India when the word came out immediately from Menzingen that the excommunications were lifted, and at exactly the same time there was a news media explosion throughout the whole world against the SSPX because of Bishop Williamson's statements. And so Father Chazelle made a toast. He said, to Bishop Williamson, who through no fault of his own saved the Society of St. Pius X because of the revealing, because of the statements on the Holocaust, which he had made earlier in 2008, but weren't revealed until the very day of the excommunications being lifted. And so we have the workings of the society in 2001. Bishop Fillet said it's necessary for us to make a deal with Rome because Pope John Paul II is getting very old, and we don't know who's going to be the new Pope. It'll probably be someone very liberal, and John Paul II wants to fix the problem of the SSPX before he dies, because he saw the excommunications as being a blight, as being a big negative blight on the history of his papacy, and he wants to fix it before he dies. So therefore we must act urgently. And Father Schmidberger and Bishop Fillet went around visiting our priories throughout the world and the priest meetings, and they discovered that there was a very negative reaction. That the majority of us in the society, we don't want to be working with the Modernists in Rome. They haven't converted in Rome. We're not going to accept a deal with Rome. And there was a recognition that there was still too much negativity within the Society of St. Pius X to accept a deal with Rome in 2001. But there were meetings, the 3 of the 4 bishops, excluding Father Bishop de Galarreta, met with Cardinal Hoyos in the year 2000 in the Roman pilgrimage that we had in 2000. And then they met multiple times since then. And Cardinal Hoyos laid out the battle plan back in 2002. How we're going to reunite the Society of St. Pius X with Rome. And the battle plan is actually a repetition of the battle plan laid out by the organization called GREC in 1997. And the organization of GREC in 1997 said we're going to have to work in stages in bringing the Society of St. Pius X back in union with Rome. Because the people are too negative, the priests are too negative, and they're very, very afraid of Vatican II, very afraid of the new Mass, and they are not trusting. And therefore you can't just take them in right away. So we have to go in stages. And we need to do 2 movements, a movement on the side of Rome and a movement within the SSPX, in order to bring about compromise so that there can be a reunion between the Society of St. Pius X and Modernist Rome. And the battle plan starts off with the society must first begin to diminish its negative rhetoric. That's phase 1 from the society's side. Diminish, you cannot bring it into an end, but diminish the negative rhetoric against Rome, against Pope John Paul II, and then later on Pope Benedict, and later on Pope Francis, and to reduce its negative rhetoric against Rome, to not speak so much against the evils of Vatican II, and not speak so much against the new Mass, but rather have a more positive approach. And so that's phase 1 for the society. And then from Rome, they will also diminish their condemnations. Remember here in Santa Barbara, it was just at the Santa Barbara Church, and the priest in Santa Barbara, when I was here in 2005 and 6, the priest told the faithful that everybody in Barangay Daga at the St. Bernard Novitiates were Satanists. They said we were Satanists, and that we, I don't know if we ate babies or whatever we were supposed to have done up there at the novitiate. The priest said that we were Satanists and stay away from the satanic people in the Society of St. Pius X. Well, that negativity had to diminish. And said, we've got to diminish this kind of negativity throughout the world. So that even though the society is not approved, let's diminish the comments against the society. And on the society's part, they will diminish their negativity. Then we will have a show of goodwill, the next stage of the reunification. The show of goodwill will be done by the Pope freeing up the Latin Mass. And this was done by Pope Benedict in 2007. When Benedict became Pope in 2005, immediately the rumors were that he would free up the Latin Mass. We were waiting for him to make it his first encyclical or his first bull back in 2005, and he didn't do so. I was instructed here in the Philippines, Iloilo, to create a campaign, and I headed a campaign in order to bring Navasoto priests into the Latin Mass. And Father Couture told me, don't be negative in this campaign. So we're going to put together a flyer, which I did. I put together a big flyer. I remember in Santa Barbara, I had to download a 3 gigabyte file from France, and it took 70 hours. So me and my closest buddies are a clan up there in Santa Barbara, who were all playing their video games for the same 72 hours when I was there. They had to download at the internet cafe. It took 70 or 72 hours to download the file, and to get the pictures and the things in the file, something similar they did in France the year before. So I put together a big flyer, and we mailed it out to every single priest in the Philippines. So 22,000 flyers mailed out to all the priests in the Philippines, and then to try to meet with the priests. And when it became time to meet with the priests, I was transferred to India, and so the whole thing kind of collapsed. But we started the campaign part 1, and then I visited with bishops, and a few of the bishops here. And when I was sent to India, I was to continue the campaign, but in India. I met with over 300 priests, met with over 30 bishops, and to try to talk to them about the Latin Mass. And that, in fact, this is all part of a general campaign, a general global campaign to reduce the negativity of the SSPX priests against Modernist Rome, and to reduce the negativity of Modernist Rome against the SSPX priests. And so I visited the priests, visited the bishops, spoke with them about the Latin Mass and about tradition, tried to get priests to come to the Latin Mass and so on. And so met with many priests here in the Philippines, but the campaign was just underway, and then I was transferred to India and wasn't able to continue it here. Then I was able to do a lot more in India, meeting with priests and with bishops. And but at the same time, then the excommunications are lifted in 2007. 2007, motu proprio summorum pontificum. When that motu proprio came out, I was here stationed in Asia, and there was a request for the priests to sing a Te Deum. When I read that motu proprio, I said, this is a demonic motu proprio. We're not going to sing a Te Deum over this. This motu proprio says that the new Mass is the ordinary Mass of the Church. It has one little sentence to make traditional Catholics happy. The sentence that says, the old Mass was not abrogated. And that sentence means nothing in the context of the entire bull, or the entire motu proprio of Pope Benedict XVI, in which he replaces the indult of 88 with an indult of 2007. And if it was never abrogated, he couldn't replace it with another indult. So it was one of the many contradictory documents since Vatican II. And it says explicitly that the new Mass and the Latin Mass are the same rite, which is a blasphemy. They're not the same rite at all. And so he said, no, absolutely not. This is a bunch of baloney. So, but then our attitude towards the indult changed in 2007. We used to go and speak with the priests and with Bishop Fillet multiple times. He said, what happened since 2007? First of all, this motu proprio is straight from hell. And Bishop Fillet would respond, it's not perfect. That's all he would tell me. It's not perfect. And our priest used to say, the new Mass is straight from hell, Vatican II is straight from hell, and the indult is a compromise straight from hell. Don't go to the indult Mass, don't go to the Trinity of St. Peter. And I remember mentioning to Bishop Fillet, after a visit to New Zealand and visiting some of our other priests, there are our society priests who are saying it's okay to go to the indult Mass. Our society priests are saying, why are we going and saying Mass in such and such a place when there's a Fraternity of St. Peter Mass there. I complained about that to Bishop Fillet. Bishop Fillet gave the usual response of, well, you know, I mean, yes, I mean, well, okay, yeah, that's interesting. And it did not actually, it did not do anything or say anything about it. But in fact, it was an overall campaign. He said we should be grateful for 2007. This is all part of the campaign. It has been undergoing for a long time. Now we come to 2009, the next stage. The bishops show a vote of goodwill to Rome, and they write a letter containing a lie. The lie is, please lift our excommunications. There are no excommunications to lift. It's a lie. And it was a sin against the church and a sin against the first commandment when those 4 bishops did that. And they did it to say that, well, okay, now they're going to be lifting the excommunication, so the people will begin to come to us. 2009. Then there were doctrinal talks between 2009 and 2011. That was the next stage laid out in the plan of Cardinal Hoyos. After the doctrinal talks, then will come the reunion. The reunion was supposed to happen in 2012, but still there was too much opposition. I was part of that opposition, standing up in 2012 and saying, no, we cannot make a deal with Modernist Rome. This is a compromise of faith. If we accept to work alongside the Modernists, that means we implicitly and truly accept modernism. If I go into a church and Father Bob was going to say the new Mass at 9 o'clock and I'm going to say the true Mass at 11 o'clock, and the people that want to go to my Mass can go to my Mass, the people that want to go to Father Bob's Mass can go to Father Bob's Mass, that means I am implicitly and truly approving of the new Mass. And that equals a compromise of faith. So I say no to that. Absolutely not. There was too much rock rising up in 2012. There was a massive opposition throughout the entire world. And there was an explosion in 2012. And 2 things happened in 2012. Those of us that stood up and stayed standing up, like myself and Father Giselle, we were thrown out of the society. So I received my expulsion October the 3rd, 2012. Father Giselle received his on October the 4th, 2012. We were together in Singapore when we received our expulsions. Mine October the 3rd, the Feast of St. Teresa, and Father Giselle's October the 4th. The next day, the Feast of St. Francis. And then October the 8th, a few days later, Bishop Williamson received his expulsion also. And then there were other priests thrown out who left, expelled over this crisis. Now over 100 priests who are either thrown out, expelled, left, or cut off because of this problem of the Modernist deal with Rome and the compromise of faith in the Society of St. Pius X, making it the largest exodus, the largest split in the history of the Society of St. Pius X. Then, between 2012 and now, 2018, what happened? Pope Benedict XVI retired. Pope Francis became the Pope. When Pope Francis became the Pope, the word was, well, now we got a really liberal Pope. Don't worry, there's no danger. There's no danger of us going along with this modernist Pope. What happens? Bishop Fillet continues to meet with the Pope. Read the interview of just a few weeks ago before the General Chapter. Bishop Fillet says to a German paper, whenever we come to Rome, Pope Francis always makes time for us. We're always welcomed by Pope Francis. Whenever we come to Rome, we let him know we're in Rome, and he always has time for us. Pope Francis is very good to us. Pope Francis is very kind. And he likes the disenfranchised and so on. Never mind the wicked acts of Pope Francis. Never mind the heresies of Pope Francis. Never mind the cruelty of Pope Francis towards all the others in the church. But he's nice to us. And then and so that the society continues its communication with Rome and continues its movement towards an approval of Rome. What happened between 2012 and 2018? Now what happened? The websites, the district letters, the magazines of the society all become exactly the same. You can right now go to SSPX.org right now, or go to Decay.org right now. You can do it if you wish. Go to SSPX.org right now and look at the bulletin. It says Cardinal Schneider, Bishop Schneider says pray more often. There's problems in Russia. And the church offers to help solve a crisis in Indonesia. And so that we have all these modernist things all being reported. A conservative priest here, there's a problem in this place, a problem in that place. There's going to be a symposium in the Society of St. Pius Angelus Conference 2018. Is going to be on life in honor of the 50th, the 40th, 78, 88, 98, 08, the 50th. The 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae. So that this year, the Society of St. Pius X is having a conference on life. These are the kind of conferences that conservatives have had the last 40 years. They say that the only thing the church must be against is abortion. And the SSPX is more and more involved in the anti-abortion movement with mainstream anti-abortionists. And talking about the terrible thing about abortion. And abortion is a terrible thing. Well, what is the greatest abortion? It's the abortion of Christ outside of the Mass. Christ is aborted outside of the new Mass. Christ is aborted outside of the Vatican II Council. The faith is aborted outside of our modern church. This is a much more serious abortion against the first commandment, which is a much more serious crime than the murders against the fifth commandment. And these crimes are no longer condemning. Spoke to a priest recently. Said, look at the website. A priest coming over from the Fraternity of St. Peter, from the Novus Ordo, coming over to the Society of St. Pius X. So we'll look at the website. Look at the modernism throughout the website. And because he's really good at Google search, he looks inside the website and says, well, look at this. All of this, all this modernist baloney is put right in front of your face. What does it say that modernism is? A philosophical trend prevalent even today. Well, if you look down further, it says St. Pius X said it was bad. And if you look really down further, it says that you can look at a little link here and it refers you to Open Letter to Confused Catholics. So if you continue searching the website, you'll find there's still a link to Narcissus Lefebvre book. You'll find down bottom there's still a link to something Catholic. There's still a link to the old SSPX. It's on page 47. It's on link 23. What does Archbishop of St. Pius X rather say about the modernists? He says the modernists on one page communicate straight modernist vomitopia's heresy. And the same modernist, when you turn the page, says something Catholic. And why does he do this? So that those who want to placate their consciences and say, I'm not a modernist, they can quote Teilhard de Chardin, they can quote the modernist and say, well, the modernist said Jesus is God. The modernist said Jesus was responsible for evolution. That's all that matters, is that Jesus did it, that God did it. And on the other page, it speaks about other religions being okay. On the other page, it says new Mass is legitimately promulgated. On the other page, it says we are supporting Cardinal Burke because he says the way things are. We support the great traditional Bishop Schneider. And we're not the only ones communicating the truth anymore. Others are doing it also. Weddings. What happens with weddings? What happens with confessions? Just recently, a priest saying the Novus Ordo Mass, in Australia, he told one of our faithful, he says, you can go to the confession, you can go to Father Pfeiffer's Mass, but don't go to confession to him because he got expelled from the society and his confessions are no longer valid. Whereas you can go to the SSPX priest mainstream for confession because the Pope made their confessions valid. So that it's okay to go to this priest who's saying the new Mass, and this priest who also says the Latin Mass, who used to be an SSPX priest once upon a time, tells them, okay, you can go to the society Masses because their confessions are approved by Rome. And you can go to confession to them. But, and then the marriages, what about the marriages? All this happens under Pope Francis. And we have a continuation of them working with the modernists. What is happening with these websites, with the documents coming out from the Society of St. Pius X, quoting the good Bishop Schneider, the good Cardinal Burke, the encouraging good cardinals that stood up against the Pope, the theologians, the 45 theologians that wrote a letter saying there are 7 heresies of Pope Francis. It's interesting about those 7 heresies that were mentioned last year concerning the Mores Laetitiae. How many heresies are mentioned on the website of the Society of St. Pius X? I'll give you the total. 0.0000000 heresies are mentioned on the Society of St. Pius X website. The official commentary to Mors Laetitia in the SSPX website says it's problematic. It can be easily misunderstood. Don't worry, be concerned. And so be concerned, it could be misunderstood. What do the Novus Ordo conservative priests say who celebrate the new Mass every day? What do the conservative professors who attend the new Mass and accept Vatican II, what do they say? They say Amoris Laetitia is heresy. So the modernists inside of the conservative Novus Ordo are more Catholic than the SSPX. And they're the ones who said, these are 7 heresies. And you can read the 7 heresies. And at the end of it, it says, this is not an exhaustive list of heresies contained in your Amoris Laetitia. This is simply a partial list of 7 specific heresies by which you go against the teaching of the Church. Now, the problem with that document, it says these heresies are against Vatican II. No, they're not. It says these heresies are against John Paul II. No, they're not. It says these heresies are against Benedict XVI. No, they're not. But it also says these heresies are against the perennial teaching of the Church. Yes, they are. These heresies are against the Council of Trent. Yes, they are. They're against the Fathers of the Church. Yes, they are. So what's happening is we have a correct condemning of heresies, but we have a support of heretics and of heretical documents to back up the condemnation of heresies. What does this do? It means you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So if you go along with the condemnation, and you accept that Vatican II teaches the truth, the which it does not, and you accept that John Paul II taught the truth, the which he did not, then you end up being on the side of Vatican II. And if you go against the condemnation, you're going with Pope Francis, which is on the side of Vatican II. So if you condemn, you're with Vatican II, and if you accept, you're with Vatican II. Bishop Villay added his name to the document. He did not write the document. His document that was issued by his priest was a very liberal and much more weak and modernist document. The document written by the kind modernists, by the conservative modernists, was much better. And that was last year, or a year and a half ago. Bishop Villay signs it. He signs it without any corrections, without any amendments. And Bishop Villay says, we are not the only ones. Just coming from KL, Kuala Lumpur, said Mass there yesterday. What is happening there? Marriages. And the priest participated in the marriages with the Novus Ordo. And that the more people are beginning to come to Mass, apparently a brand new development in Kuala Lumpur, because the bishop is no longer violently condemning the society. He says, well, the society is approved in its confessions, the society is approved in its marriages, as long as they have a marriage with the witness of the Novus Ordo priest, and these things are happening more and more. Father Pagliarani, he's our new superior. I'm going to try to meet with him as soon as I can, and provided he accepts to meet with me. But I will meet with him, also try to meet with Father Summers. I met with Father Stalin when he became the superior of Asia, to let him know I'm a priest of Asia. I'm a priest of Asia who's not obeying him because of the liberalism and modernism in the SSPX. So I have the same speech as Father Summers, essentially. I'll try to meet with him as soon as he settles in, and I'm able to come over and meet with him, and he accepts a meeting. Same thing with Father Pagliarani. I'll meet with him, the superior of the Society of St. Pius X, the new superior that's taken the place of Bishop Villay. And this new superior, he needs to renew, then ratify the teaching of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre and our Holy Mother of the Church, and he needs to change and eradicate and remove the Doctrinal Declaration of 2012. He also needs to get rid of the General Statement of the General Chapter of 2012, which is contrary to the faith, and he needs to eradicate the 6 conditions that still stand as the conditions of our union with Rome, which conditions are against the faith. These conditions are still there in 2018. The Doctrinal Statement of 2012 still stands as an SSPX statement of faith, which is contrary to God, saying the new Mass legitimately promulgated, saying that Vatican II can be understood in the light of tradition. It absolutely cannot. It is contrary to the faith. It is filled with heresy. Now, what about the general movement within the SSPX in the last 6 years? Conservative priests are removed from positions of authority. They are put in punishment. One of the punishment places is called the Philippines. I don't know if you've ever been there, but this is one of the punishment places. So that people, so that the French, my brother was sent here, I was sent here. The, what do you call it, the French priest that just met the last time, now he's been sent back to France, I guess, sent here because he was the priest who wrote the letter of, he was involved in the letter of the 7 priests that said, the 7 deans that said we are going to continue to do Catholic marriages in the SSPX. He wrote the letter along with 7 other priests, and it was published in March, I think, of last year, on a Sunday morning. By Sunday night, they were all fired by Father Bouchacor. And he was sent, because he was considered one of the leaders of the 7, he was sent to the Philippines as a punishment. This is punishment territory. Well, he was sent to the Philippines as a punishment with my brother in Davao. And then the 7 priests were immediately punished. They were immediately punished by Father Bouchacor. What happens to Father Bouchacor? He is now 2nd assistant or 1st assistant of the SSPX. Father Bouchacor is the priest who was friends with Cardinal Bergoglio. He met with him at least 8 times before he became Pope. And of course, and Father Bouchacor knew well Cardinal Bergoglio before he became Pope, and he arranged with Cardinal Bergoglio the approval of the Society of St. Pius X in Buenos Aires. And so that Cardinal Bergoglio was the one who gave the approval of the SSPX before he became Pope. So Pope Francis knows personally the 2nd Superior of the Society, Father Bouchacor. Father Pagliarani, the new Superior of the Society. He is Italian. He speaks Spanish because he was in the Argentinian seminary. He speaks English perfectly. He was here in Asia. And so we have an Italian and Spanish priest, Superior of the Society of St. Pius X, to communicate with the Italian and Spanish Pope. We have a Superior of Argentina as the 2nd head of the Society, who is friends with the Italian and Spanish Pope. We have a Bishop Fillet, who no longer is Superior of the Society, but he has now been put in position of Counselor of the Superior, along with Father Schmidberger, Counselor of the Superior, the 2 former Superior Generals for the last 36 years. And these Superior Generals are both firmly in favor of the Modernist deal with Rome and removing the extreme anti-modernism of the extreme priests of the Society. One of the complaints made in the interview of July of 2018, just a few right before the General Chapter, there are still priests in your society that even say you don't fulfill your Sunday obligation by going to the new Mass. There are still priests in your society, Bishop Fillet, who speak very strongly against the new Mass. That's not the norm. That's not the way everyone is. And of course, not every new Mass is harmful to souls. That's the response of Bishop Fillet right before the election. Father Pagliarani was the priest in 2012 when there was a speaking out against Bishop Fillet in the General Chapter for his deviations from the work of the Society and from the fidelity to Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. Father Pagliarani stood up and said, "We will not slap our Superior General in the face. We will bring an end to all this criticism of the Superior General," and he squelched the opposition to Bishop Fillet in the General Chapter of 2012. He was rewarded by becoming the new Superior of the Society of St. Pius X. And so, the direction of the Society, is it changed? Absolutely not. What is the problem with society? Bishop Williamson will tell you, and many others, the problem with the Society is Bishop Fillet. He's a bad man. No, the problem is not Bishop Fillet. Only God knows whether or not he's a good man or a bad man. God will judge his soul. It is not a problem with Bishop Fillet. It is not a problem of one superior. It is not a problem of one person, or even the superiors by themselves. There is a general movement in the Society of St. Pius X that wants to get along with the modern world. There is an acceptance within the Society of St. Pius X of the erroneous against the faith statement of 2012 concerning the doctrinal statement, and an acceptance of the public statement of July of 2012, which is weak in the faith and does not say that New Mass and Vatican II are straight from hell, which our former documents always said, and an acceptance by the priest the 6 wicked conditions of 2012, one of which is we accept to be governed by the Modernist bishops. And this is bad. What has happened in regard to the growth of the Society of St. Pius X? In the last 6 years, there are many people that have requested the society to come and say Mass for them. And in so many instances, the society has said, no, we don't have enough priests. We can't take care of you. When I was ordained a priest in society 24 years ago, when I was ordained a priest, we had enough priests. And we had 1/3 or 1/2 the number of priests that we have now. And we had more missions than we have right now. Now we have twice the number of priests when I was ordained. Now there's 600 priests. When I was ordained, there's about 300 priests, a little bit less. And now we have less missions. We have less confessions, less masses than we used to have when I was ordained. What happened? What happened is there was a general movement to no longer offend the bishops like we used to. And we're not going to open visions everywhere like we used to. We're not going to respond to the call of the faithful everywhere like we used to. It is not a matter of one bad person. It's not a matter of one bad superior. As Father Jahir said back in 2013, the problem of the SSPX is filled with white ants. It is filled with termites. And the termites and the white ants eat all the wood and eat all the bamboo. They eat it all, and what happens? It collapses, it falls apart, and there's nothing left. Can you fix it? No. All you can do is replace it. Hence, Father Jahir, an 80-year-old priest, told me in 2013, you have to replace. You have to start anew. You have to continue the work of our schism of faith. You have to do what he would do, and that is start a seminary that is not infected with modernism, that is not following the modernist ways. Establish parishes, as the SSPX has always done, that are not following the modernism. We don't accept the new confessions. We don't accept being approved by the new confessions and the new marriages, as if our old marriages and our other confessions are invalid. We're not accepting this confusion amongst the faithful. We're not accepting this confusion of the faith. We still say with absolute clarity, the new Mass in Vatican II equals straight from hell, equals contrary to God, contrary to the faith, leading souls to hell. And we must continue to be apostolic. We must continue to respond to the call of the faithful, to hear confessions where we're not approved, to say Mass where we're not approved, and to guide souls to the kingdom of heaven. And this is a necessity for all men on earth. It is not a necessity for those that like tradition. The definition of tradition has changed in the minds of our traditional Catholics of the society in the last 6 years. Well, the Fraternity of St. Peter is also traditional. The Indult is also traditional. This bishop is very traditional. Those people are very traditional. No, you're either with me, says Jesus Christ, or you're against me. You gather with me or you scatter. Who does not gather completely with Christ is a scatterer. Who is not with Christ completely is against him. Such is the teaching of our church for 2,000 years, and so it remains to be true in 2018. So there is a battle of the faith, and the battle of the faith must continue. Our parishes in the mainstream society are becoming weaker. Our people are becoming more and more liberal. They are more and more accepting of the Novus Ordo bishops, more and more accepting of the conservative and traditional people of the Fraternity of St. Peter, of the Indult communities. There's more and more of an interaction between society people and Novus Ordo people. In Brisbane, for instance, a year ago, they had the combined parish picnic between the Fraternity of St. Peter Parish with their priest and the SSPX Parish with their priest, gathering together for the parish picnic together, a traditional picnic. One of the priests I met in the airplane last year, he said, we had a wonderful meeting. 3 priests from St. Mary's, Kansas. They went to a Novus Ordo gathering in near Kansas City, on the Kansas side, not the Missouri side. And they gathered together with 200 Novus Ordo people. The girls were wearing their veils. They were wearing modest pants. They were saying the rosary, many of them wearing dresses. They were very spiritual, and it was gathered together by conservatives, not by traditionalists. It's very encouraging to see the good work that they're doing. We can't say we're the only ones being traditional now. What did Archbishop Lefebvre say about this conservative movement? He said, they have betrayed us. They have betrayed us. They have betrayed us 3 times. They have betrayed us. They have betrayed us. They have betrayed us. They have gone away from the truth, and the people must make up their minds. We are not just going for the Latin Mass. We're not just going for the conservative dresses. We're not just going for veils. We're not just going for conservatism and for nice incense. We are fighting for the whole faith. And this fight for the faith has been taken from us. Say what you will. Look at the publications. Listen to the sermons. Look at the general movement of the whole SSPX. Consider the movement and changement of the superiors. Those that are more conservative and sent in the old-fashioned way, they are set aside. They no longer have authority. They are sent to the missions. They are sent to the extremities of the earth. They are not going to be functioning in our quote-unquote main places. And they're not going to be the movers and shakers of the society. Who are the leaders? What is the direction in which they are going? It is modernist and modernism. What is the problem of the society? Is it simply Bishop Fillet is a bad person? No, it's not. Is it simply replace him with a nice guy and everything's going to be okay? Absolutely not. There's an official position of the SSPX. There are the communications of the SSPX. There are the letters. There are the official proclamations of the society. There is a general decision-making of the society, the whole mode of how the society of St. Vincent operates, and it is not as we used to operate. It is not with the spirit of the old days, as Archbishop Lefebvre founded it. It is not with the directions of the old days, and it is not with the doctrine of the old days. My own brother told me in his travel to the Philippines, visiting over 100,000 people in 2000, just last year, 100th anniversary, 2017, the Fatima. They brought the Fatima statue and visited over 100,000 people. Went over 2,000 miles walking in the Philippines. It's 600 miles top to bottom, so they took the roundy ride. And they went walking to 2,000 miles, 3,000 kilometers on your road. And what did they do? They spoke about Mary Immaculate. They talked about belonging to the militia of Our Lady. They were even condemned and attacked by the local bishops, the local dioceses, but it was a policy not to speak about the new Mass, not to speak about Vatican II, but rather speak about devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary, belonging to the Immaculata. How many parishioners picked up? My brother told me a year ago, approximately 0. But they visited over 100,000 people and went walking along the shores and were even persecuted by the dioceses and told they were excommunicated. So then what's the point in not bringing up the problem? But that was the policy, the new policy of the society, and my brother accepted it. As if, Brother Tim, you would never do that in the old days. Absolutely never. When we gathered priests down in Davao a couple of years ago, we would put the priest, we set the priest against the wall, and we did the old Italian technique. One big guy sat on one side, and the other one sat on the other side, and the man in the middle, what are you doing saying the new Mass? And then we squeeze together, crushing the priest. Why are you saying the new Mass? Why are you saying the new Mass? You modernist, you modernist. And that's how we dealt with him. Remember one priest, he was a military priest, he was getting squeezed. You know what? I like this. You guys are tough guys. And that's how we adopted them. And we met with many priests. We told them they were a bunch of stinking modernists. We told them the new Mass was straight from hell. And not one of them was offended, because they knew they were coming to the SSPX. We're supposed to say that. But now it's a new and positive approach. The new and positive approach. And this positive approach is not really positive. It's a total shift of the SSPX, a general movement, and this movement is contrary to God, against Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, and leading to the loss of souls and the watering down of the society. And what has happened throughout the world? In general, our parishes are smaller. 450 people went to ordinations in Ecom this year. Normally it used to be 3,000 to 5,000 at ordinations, 450. United States, several hundred attended the ordinations. We normally have 4,000 at the ordinations. From 4,000 to several hundred. From 3,000 or 4,000 to 450. The people are simply not coming because they recognize we've changed. They're going to the Sedevacantist. They're going to the Novus Ordo. They're leaving the faith altogether. They're going to the Indulge. But why should they stay with the society? And the prophecy of Archbishop Lefebvre of 1988 is being fulfilled. He said, if we were to make this deal with Rome, it would be Operation Suicide. Perhaps we would get some more faithful, he said in 88. Perhaps we would get some more vocations, but they would be weak faithful of the Novus Ordo, coming to us only for the Mass and not for the faith. And there will be vocations that are weak in the faith and not strong in the faith. They built a new seminary in Virginia. One of my nephews is in that seminary. and the 3 of Father Hugo's nephews are in that seminary. And in that seminary in Virginia, a New Society seminary, they built it because they needed a bigger seminary. At the end of the school year this year, 65 seminarians. That's how many were there when I was in the seminary 26 years ago. There were 65 seminarians. 26 years have passed. Where are all the new seminarians? We have a lot more vocations, a lot more priests. We have more priories, but we don't have more missions. Where are all these vocations? We now can say that we're not attacked by Rome like we used to be. We're not as negative. They used to hate us. You mentioned SSPX when I was ordained, and people would revolt in horror, just like when they hear the word resistance nowadays, they have an emotional collapse. But so that they used to have an emotional collapse when they heard SSPX. Not anymore. Where are all these vocations? Where are they? They're not there. They expected this massive growth. It was expected in 1966. It didn't happen. It was a brief resurgence, a very brief entering of some people to the seminaries in the late 60s, and then they all left. So likewise, there's a large number of young men entered the seminary last year in Virginia, and over half of them are now gone. And there's a great disillusionment throughout the whole SSPX. And what about the new people, the new priests? Where are they coming? They don't want to go to the SSPX. Like one priest told me in Australia a couple of years ago, I said, why aren't you interested in the Society of St. Vitus X as a Novus Ordo priest? And he said to me, it was the feeling of many other priests. He said, I am a Novus Ordo priest. Why would I want to join an organization that's trying to join the organization that I'm leaving? Why am I going to go to someone who's coming back? I'm leaving the Novus Ordo to join somebody who's going to the Novus Ordo? Forget it. And that's the feeling of many priests. Many priests. And so what do we have to do? Stay firm in the holy faith, continue the battle, and stand. And what do they tell us in 2012? There's going to be no deal with Rome. What do they say in 2012? We're not going to become more liberal modernists. Rome is never going to approve of us. They're not going to approve of us. Well, they approve of the confessions. They approve of the marriages, which means you're approved. Our priests are saying indult masses. Where do we say Mass in Madras, India? We say it in the Novus Ordo Church, in St. Anthony's, and the Cathedral Road. We say it in Novus Ordo Church. And the people go to the Mass there. They're back. They had about 10 people at Mass before. Now they got about 50 people at Mass. And those 50 people go to the indult, go to the new Mass, and go to the SSPX. Only about 6 or 7 of them are actually only SSPX. Meanwhile, our chapel in Chinamalai, Little Mount, we have 75 faithful with the resistance, and they only go to the Latin Tridentine Mass. They never go to the new Mass, and they are firmly with tradition. The group over there started with 11 people when they got started a couple years ago, saying Mass in the new church. Well, now they're up to 50 or 60. So they went from 11 to 50 or 60. But those 50 or 60 are Novus Ordo people who are still Novus Ordo. And we're finding this new group of Novus Ordo people coming to our Masses who go back and forth to the indult, who are not condemned for it. When they are condemned, it's because a priest who's more conservative privately tells them behind closed doors, don't go to the indult. But he will not say it openly and publicly from the pulpit. He will not say it clearly. When he does say it, it's by some kind of secret way that the people that are in the know what he's talking about. The average people have no idea. This is a loss of faith. This is a watering down of the faith, a complete loss of faith at all the different levels. And it's not, and the official doctrine is still changed. They haven't gone back to the right doctrine. Priests who are firmly against any kind of deal with Rome, like my brother, now he says we make a deal with Rome, it'll be okay. As long as we got to be careful. 2012, we make a deal with Rome, that's a compromise of faith. 6 years later, we make a deal with Rome, it's a sign that Rome's converting. And we got to be careful. That's a change. That's a change. When you live with compromise, you end up becoming compromised. Where Father Suelo said, when you go inside of the snake and you get slimed, you become slimy. And that's what's happening inside of our society. We're becoming more and more slimy. And they no longer are honest and straightforward. Many people don't know that they just got married by the SSPX priest in the SSPX chapel only because the Nova Scotia bishop approved of the marriage, and they don't even tell the people. They're keeping it a secret, and they're finding out by accident. And then when the Nova Scotia priest shows up and observes, sits up in the balcony, watches the church, he's the one making sure the marriage is valid according to the new rules. And the priests say this is a good thing, because now they can't get an annulment. They need to change their sinking medication. Have you ever been around in the last 60 years? What happens to people who get married in the Nova Scotia? They get an annulment. All you do is put money in the machine, like a Coke machine, and out comes the annulment. You think there's going to be less annulments because they got approved by a modernist priest? There have been marriages in the last 50 years, and what do? When they go to Rome, when they go to the diocese, they get an annulment, an annulment, an annulment. There are 4 options. You can apply for an annulment, get an annulment, or you can apply for an annulment, get an annulment, or you can apply for an annulment, get an annulment, or you can apply for an annulment and get an annulment. Those are your options. Now that's and so that there are no other options. And now they're saying, oh, now that the society, they used to say that they gave an annulment to our people because they said lack of canonical form. Change your medication. It is foolishness, absolute foolishness. They give the annulment anyway. All that's happening is that the society is being sucked into the modernist beast, and the people are going along with it. Why are they doing this slowly and step by step? They gave in on the doctrine, but nobody cares about that a long time ago. Now they're giving in on the practice, bit by bit by bit. So the people will be swallowed by the beast. And guess what? They're being swallowed by the beast. And know this, the majority of people are very happy to be swallowed by the beast. Very happy. They've got no problem with the idea of not having one kid after another. You mean, I used to have to have one kid after another. Now I can space them. I used to have to only go to the society masses. Now one layman told me, one of my former parishioners, I am still the same as I always was, Father. I've just become more practical. So I go to the most convenient Mass. I go to the SSPX Mass if that's most convenient. I go to the Inbuilt Fraternity of St. Peter Mass if that's most convenient. And I go to John the 23rd. That's the name of the church. I go to John the 23rd if that's most convenient. But I'm still as traditional as I always was. Are you? Well, then how come you're going all 3 Masses? Before you would only go to 1. Oh no, I just became more practical. But I'm still as traditional as I always was, and the priests are just as traditional as they always were, and everybody is just as good as they always were. It's just that they've changed. They're not the same as they were before. And there's a loss of faith. And what are we hearing now? If you're with the resistance, you're excommunicated. Well, that's familiar. If you're in resistance, you can't receive communion. They just refused communion in Brisbane as the official chapel for refusing communion in Brisbane, Australia. They're trying to get the badge for the most number of refused communions. So they get a little sticker. I refused 10 communions today. I refuse. They get a little sticker every time they refuse communion. And so now they're trying to set the record. The latest is one of our resistance faithful, and he was told that you're going to both resistance and the society. Therefore, you're definitely in mortal sin. So you're going to be refused communion. One of the persons, another person in Brisbane Chapel, he was refused communion because he goes to my Mass. He refused communion. They love refusing communion. In other places, they threaten refusing communion, but in Brisbane, they put it in practice. They are the official chapel of refusing Holy Communion. So, but in any case, other places have also refused communion. They also threaten to expel kids. We had one kid expelled from kindergarten. It's hard to get expelled from kindergarten. He was expelled from kindergarten because his mommy, your mommy and daddy went to Father Pfeiffer's Mass. They did. You're expelled. And he was thrown out. Didn't get a smiley face that day. He was thrown out of kindergarten. And this kind of absurdity has been going on for the last 6 years. And very often people, even if they don't get expelled, if they don't get refused Holy Communion, they're afraid of getting expelled. They're afraid of getting refused Holy Communion. They're afraid of being thrown out of the parish. And therefore, they don't come to our Mass. And if they do, they go to the back of the chapel with the biggest sunglasses ever known to man. And they're there in the back of the chapel, and nobody's supposed to recognize them. Then they escape. Don't tell anybody. This is absurdity. But it's a reality throughout the whole world. It's a reality throughout the whole world. Are things getting better in the SSPX? Absolutely not. They're getting worse. There's a greater loss of faith. So we can't go along with this baloney. To do a little checkup on where we are right now in 2018. starting the resistance right here in the Philippines. Father Giselle and I, in 2013, this is for 12. This is when we started all our chapels, 2012, right here in the Philippines. And then we spread throughout the entire world. And the movement still exists throughout the entire world. Why? Because of the loss of faith. We have a young man entering our seminary in Kentucky. He decided he's brand new to tradition the last couple of years. We now have 9 seminarians. We should have another 4, 5, 6 seminarians coming in the next few months. So, and one man coming to the seminary. He visited the seminary in Virginia, stayed 1 week there. Then he visited our seminary in Kentucky and stayed 1 week there. He said, I'm going to go with this seminary because this has got the real faith. He spent time, he talked to the priest, the society. I'm going to the resistance. I'm going to Father Pfeiffer's seminary in Kentucky. And the priest wouldn't talk to him because he was afraid to talk to him to the last day, a little speech, and he had no answers to the simplest question the young man asked him. 50-year-old priests, what's wrong? What about the Doctrine Declaration? Well, it's nice weather we've been having. What about the 6 conditions? What about that? Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we had nice weather we've been having. And he couldn't answer any question. 21-year-old man, a kid is asking him questions. He can't answer them. And then he said, well, they're being disobedient. Well, that's a familiar line. They're not theologians. They're being disobedient. That's what they told us before. What do the priests in Santa Barbara say? They're being disobedient. What did the bishop say when I met him in Phoenix, Arizona? My problem with you is you're not approved. You're being disobedient. And I told him, that's a problem I can't fix. All you have to do is approve of me. Problem solved, isn't it? I guarantee you that if I was a bishop of Phoenix, one of the first things I would do is approve of myself. You know, my list of priorities. But I'm not the bishop. It's not my problem. My problem is to teach the faith and take care of the sheep that are here that are not being taken care of by you, that are not being given the true faith by you. I have an obligation to take care of them. That's what I'm doing. And if I had spare time to approve myself, I would do that. But I don't. I'm busy. So your job is to do that. And the bishop was silent. He had no response. The bishop of the Holy Mother of the Church had no response. We've heard the disobedience line before. Now the SSPX is using it. You have to be obedient. You have to be obedient. You have to be obedient. We have to be obedient to the faith first and unto other things besides afterwards. In any case, we close it at that. We continue in the battle of the faith, and there are new people coming throughout the world, responding to grace and coming to the battle of the resistance. Many from the Novus Ordo, many from the Fraternity of St. Peter, also from the mainstream society, and also non-Catholics that are coming and converting to the Catholic faith. But we have to continue the battle of the faith. There's where the answer is. There's where the struggle is. And we must persevere in that battle. There's where the strands are. We've had Mass in these places before. We want to have another church. Fine, we'll build another church. So when the $1 million come through and all the millions of pesos come through, no problem, we'll build a new church. Until then, we persevere in the faith. And God will provide. We'll do that. Close that. God bless you all. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.